just when you think you have a place like Potosí figured out. A place, by the way, like the rest of Bolivia, that is socially conservative irrespective of its ostensibly leftist government. Out come the high school girls in short skirts and 3-inch heels, marching down the middle of the street. And that's only one of the enigmas to be found here. This is one of the highest cities in the world, with a nominal elevation of about 13,400 feet, although parts of it are considerably higher. And its reason for being, Cerro Rico, or Rich Mountain, stands above 15,800 feet. So walking these hilly streets takes a bit of getting used to. Shortness of breath is the norm. Aside from the limited creature comforts, the town itself is quite beguiling once you get away from the narrow and traffic-choked commercial streets of the Central Historic District, which haven't really changed since colonial times. What you get when you do are the same narrow colonial streets, but minus the traffic and the narrow sidewalks that are so thin that barely 2 people can pass. There's no sidewalk, so you have to walk on the street unless you walk single file. But drivers here don't seem to appreciate that. If you know what I mean. I arrived here in the early afternoon yesterday on a bus from Sucre and was immediately immersed into, shall we say, the harsher than usual reality of Potosí. The bus dropped me off, not at a bus station, but on a busy street in a scruffy part of town where, for a first-time visitor, it was impossible to know where I was. Plus, for some reason, I had no cell service. And after about a dozen attempts to flag a cab, one finally stopped, and I told the guy to take me to the Plaza Principal. On the way, the cell service resumed, and I was able to get a drop at my hotel. In the middle of the afternoon, it's pretty much impossible to find a restaurant that's open in this town. Turns out after around 2, the restaurants shut down and don't reopen until around 6 in the evening, with few exceptions. That doesn't apply to ice cream parlors, fast food chicken places, pubs, and karaoke bars. But who knew? Well, my thought was to cut through the central market as a shortcut. But now that I'm in here, it's a giant labyrinth, and I'm not so sure about how to find my way out. But I will. Found my way out, and it turns out I'm back in the rain. Oh well. It's about 1:45 in the afternoon. It's my second day here, And I'm in the blackout period for food because, as I think I may have mentioned, there are no real restaurants open in the middle of the day in the city. You can stop and ask someone and they will tell you, oh yes, around the corner is such and so restaurant, but it will not be true because that restaurant will be closed. Which makes me wonder where all these people crammed into all of these little diesel-powered buses are headed. And I don't know, maybe they're headed out of town to forage for food.
Let me say right now that Potosí is a beautiful city. Yes, the altitude is harsh. The vehicle pollution is challenging. And it will be cold at night. But all that is part of the allure and gives it the kind of travel props that cities trampled by tourists can't claim.
Of course, Potosí's claim to fame is that giant hill that you see behind me, the Cerro Rico, where at one point during Spain's early colonization of this place produced up to 60% of the world's silver, before eventually being eclipsed by the silver mines of Guanajuato in Mexico. First, a disclaimer, I would dearly love to take you into one of the many mines of Cerro Rico, except that I'm claustrophobic, so that's not happening. But I'm most happy to tell you a little about this famous, or should I say infamous, place. For nearly 500 years, Cerro Rico has made a few people fabulously wealthy at the expense of the exploited masses, including those consigned as slaves to a hellish existence here, and afterward with those who in desperation have been subjected to a kind of voluntary servitude. It started with the Spanish crown, of course, but the brutality of this place has never disappeared. Even today, poor miners with little hope of eking out an existence in any other way work small concessions, removing ore here in hopes of hitting a vein that will improve their lot in life. And they often employ their young children, as young as 10 years old as permitted by Bolivian law. At age 12, those same children can go to work for others outside the family as regular laborers. And so it is in the 21st century, the legacy of the brutal Spanish colonial oppression here is very much alive, if modified. This mountain is literally honeycombed with mine shafts, many of them centuries old from top to bottom, some more than 3,000 feet deep. Besides the prevalence of accidents, just breathing the polluted air inside this mountain, especially for workers lacking proper equipment, is a ticking time bomb. Life expectancy among miners here is barely more than 50 years. After worrying that I would be stuck with not a good view of the Cerro Rico Ridge Mountain, because the cityscapes block off a good view of the complete mountain. Found a solution, and that is the campanile of the cathedral, which I'm promised offers a great view at the top. So I've made it to the bell tower, which has 4 bells. And here is Cerro Rico. It's very windy up here, so I don't know how well I'll be heard. But I'm trying to do a stand-up, and that's impossible too because the position of one of the church bells. So we'll do a slump over. How's that? This mountain, among other things, with its really tragic history, continues to be controversial, with talk from time to time of closing it down for mining. That's because it is riddled with mine shafts that are increasingly collapsing, and it is really, to be honest about it, unsafe under much of that mountain. And one tour guide told me it's really unsafe for tours to go in the mountain, which of course are very popular, considered must-do activities for those who can tolerate the narrow spaces. But nonetheless, the mining continues. It's mostly small claim mining, and it creates some very interesting situations. The people there who work up there, many of them are poor, many of them utilize their children, as I mentioned earlier. But even when their children are not working in the mines, they will send their kids to buy extra sticks of dynamite. And so one person told me it's not unusual to see a 10-year-old child walk up and ask for 3 sticks of dynamite and some coca leaves to take back to his dad.
Mayor, ubicado en los municipios de Ayagua, Viriató, Tupista y de Tanto, como también hacemos el acopo.
It isn't as if there's no social consciousness about the evils of Cerro Rico in Potosí. But those sounding the alarm, such as those at this street fair, are swimming against the current of entrenched economic interests and political ambivalence. In the meantime, the wheels of change are slow to turn. As I walk the chilly streets at nightfall, I wonder about those kids in the parade and what they'll have to say about it.